There's been a lot of pessimism throughout Huskerland over the last couple days, with Nebraska, of course, losing to Indiana last Saturday. But in today's video, I want to remind you why I still believe Matt Rhule is the guy for the Huskers, and he's going to bring Nebraska back to national relevancy. So, really quick, we have a lot to discuss in today's video. But hey, if you're excited about 5 more Husker football games, I know I still am. Hit that like button. And hey, if you're new to the channel or a returning viewer, make sure to subscribe. I post daily Nebraska football content. So if you're a diehard Husker fan, make sure to subscribe. You will be thanking yourself that you did. But without further ado, let's get into it, talking about Matt Rhule and why I believe he is still the guy to bring Nebraska back, and he's the right man for the job in Lincoln. A loss like what happened on Saturday sucks, and it sucks for a multitude of reasons. It hurts the fan base, it hurts the team, it hurts the culture, it hurts the national media attention. But most of all, it hurts the perception of our head coach, because we thought that Nebraska was on an upward trajectory, that we never have a loss like this ever again. And we were wrong. Nebraska, of course, got blown out versus Indiana. But with that being said, we have to go back to the reasons why we believe, and we still believe, that Matt Rhule is the guy for the Huskers. So, number one, Matt Rhule is a phenomenal developer, and that is still true to this very day. Okay, when he got to Lincoln, there were a lot of pieces that were not figured out, a lot of players who were busts, a lot of guys who were not in the right headspace, didn't want to contribute to the program, and he turned their careers around. I'm going to give you some examples. Okay, the offensive line at Nebraska was horrific under Scott Frost. And although, yes, it's not where it needs to be still to this day, it's not one of the worst in Big Ten football like it was. It's actually in the top 50% according to statistics. So our offense went from bad to decent. Jamari, Nash Hutmucker, Ty Robinson, all of those guys were underproducing throughout their career. Jamari Butler was about to transfer away from the program. Nash never got real reps at nose tackle. And Ty Robinson was always in that bust category where he was such a good recruit coming out of high school, but he never lived up to it. And he turned around all of those guys' careers where now they're starting black shirts, and all of them will likely be drafted in April. John Bullock was a walk-on. He turned around his career. John Bullock's been one of the best linebackers in the country. Tommy Hill was a guy who went to Nebraska after transferring from Arizona State, went to wide receiver, went to corner, went back to wide receiver, then finally went back to corner and figured it out, and now is a consensus day 2 NFL draft pick. Sear Wright just transferred to Nebraska, had a bunch of off-the-field issues. Could he commit to football? Was he always going to go back to his acting history? And he's been one of the best corners in America. Okay, so I said all of that to say this. There are so many examples of Matt Rhule developing talent here. And he's only been here 2 years. Okay, so when we heard from Baylor fans and Temple fans how good of a developer Matt Rhule is and was, that still holds up to this day. And it's only going to get better from here. So that's the one thing you could hold at the bank and say, yeah, this is what Matt Rhule brings to the table as a coach, is that he's a good developer. He's going to take 2 stars and make them 4 stars. He's going to take 3 stars and make them 5 stars. He's going to take guys and make them NFL draft picks. So that's number one, and why I believe Matt Rhule is still a good coach and is the future at Nebraska. Number 2, I truly believe that Matt Rhule is working hard. And when I say he's working hard, I mean he's obsessive over this program. Okay, we've seen a lot of coaches quit at Nebraska. And I mean not actually quitting, but quitting mentally. They're not putting their 100% into it. Okay, Scott Frost quit mentally. His coaching staff quit mentally. One could argue Mike Riley quit mentally. Matt Rhule's not quitting. You better believe he's never going to quit. And he's had his back against the wall a couple times. He had his back against the wall in Carolina. He never quit at Carolina. Okay, it was just said last week that Matt Rhule was found sleeping in the office, right? He was working at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., said, I'm not going to go home tonight. I'm just going to sleep in the office, wake up, do it all over again. Okay, so he's obsessive. He's obsessing over how to make this team better. And there's going to be some rough spots. And I compare him a lot to Dan Campbell, who's the head coach of the Detroit Lions. It took a little bit for Dan Campbell to figure it out. And he said time and time again that he was obsessive. And he thinks about the team 24/7. And it finally clicked. Okay, and it took some time. That's what I compare Matt Rhule to. Because I truly believe Matt Rhule is working hard as anybody in the country to figure this thing out. It wasn't going to be easy. And yes, a loss like Indiana shouldn't happen, but he's not just going to lay down and die and take it. He's going to find ways to improve this team and not have that happen ever again. Third reason that I truly believe Matt Rhule is the guy is that he's not to blame for these losses. It's the coaching staff. And I hate to bring up this argument because a lot of times this is a scapegoat argument. Fans will bring this up and blame the coaching staff, but they'll never blame the head coach. And a lot of times the head coach is at fault too. Okay, that happened throughout the Scott Frost era. We would blame this assistant, and it turned out Scott Frost just wasn't a good head coach. But we didn't blame him. We blamed everybody else but him. However, this is different this time. Matt Rhule's coaching staff really is horrific. And I'm going to be completely honest with you here, that is Matt Rhule's fault. Because Matt Rhule hired these guys. He hired each and every single one of them. And a lot of them are his buddies who he coached with before. So I will say that as a Matt Rhule con, but he has an opportunity to fix it. He can fix it. He can get rid of these guys. You know, it starts off with Marcus Satterfield. I thought Michael Severe, who's a guy who talks on the radio for Nebraska, he made a really good point the other day. He said that we should have never hired Marcus Satterfield. It was plain and obvious at the time. It's plain and obvious now because there was nothing on the resume that showed you that he's a good offensive coordinator. And I remember when Marcus Satterfield got hired by Nebraska, South Carolina fans were thanking us. They said, this guy's terrible. Thanks for taking him off our hands. Okay, when opposing fans say that, you should typically believe them. And it turned out to be true. Marcus Satterfield is not a good coordinator, and he doesn't have a good resume. You know, and sure, he had a little bit of success in South Carolina, but he also had an NFL quarterback in Spencer Rattler, who's right now playing for the New Orleans Saints. And he had a little bit of success, not a lot. So that's the first guy you might have to move on from. Ed Foley was a bad hire by Matt Rhule. Ed Foley was he hadn't coached a position in 5 years. And then Matt Rhule said, hey, you're my buddy. You were at me with Temple. You're going to come with me and coach special teams. You know. So he made some bad hires, but he can make up for it right now. But it takes guts. And I get that Matt Rhule has said in the past that he doesn't like firing guys. And I understand it's good not to be rash. You don't want to fire a coach after every little bit of adversity. But when the adversity stacks up time and time again, and it's clear and day these coaches aren't doing their job, and they're reflecting poorly upon you, you got to make a big move. Okay, and this time, what I want Matt Rhule to do, I want him to hire the best coaches money can buy. Because he didn't do that last time. He really didn't. Okay, he hired his buddies. The only guy that was a really good hire that he didn't really know previous was Tony White. And he turned out really good. The other guys were his buddies, and the buddies haven't turned out too hot. So this time around, he has an opportunity to change it, fire these dudes, you know, if they continue to struggle versus Ohio State or UCLA, it's time to make that move, going to the bye week. So that's the third reason, is that his staff is really hurting his reputation. But if he had a good staff, and I'll tell you this, a head coach is only as good as his surrounding coaches, as the coordinators, as the positional coaches. Okay, so they're reflecting poorly upon him. He's got to make this move at the end of the day. We will see what happens. So for those three reasons, that he's developing at a high level, he's working his butt off, and this coaching staff that he hired is horrendous. I truly believe Matt Rhule still is a really good coach, but he has things to figure out. He's not perfect. You know, I wish we didn't get blown out versus Indiana. I don't think anybody expected it. But there's still a lot of positive energy around the program. There's still a lot of reasons for us to be optimistic. So that's why I want to remind all of you that I think Matt Rhule's still the guy. Now, let's say we get blown out versus Ohio State. Let's say we get blown out versus UCLA. Then, okay, yes, we'll start having to have a real conversation about Matt Rhule. But I don't think that's going to happen. So, all right, guys, let me know down below. What are your thoughts around Matt Rhule? Do you think he's still the guy? I do. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hey, if you made this far in the video, shout out to you. Hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, folks, go big red, go Matt Rhule, and see you in the next one.